It's my privilege to introduce you to Dr. Pradeep Khosla, who's the Chancellor of the University of California at San Diego. So, firstly, Professor Khosla, it's a pleasure to welcome you and to have you in this session. You are a luminary, and I don't think that you need much introduction, but for the benefit of those one or two who do not know Professor Khosla, let me tell you a little bit about him. Professor Khosla is the current Chancellor of UC San Diego, and besides his academic and administrative responsibilities and leadership at the UC San Diego, which is under him, it's become a leading research institution in America. Prior to that, he was a Dean of the College of Engineering at Carnegie Mellon University. He's also worked with some of America's most premier innovation organizations, including the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, which is credited with pioneering internet technologies. You are an India-educated engineer at 2 IITs, as well as then having gained your master's and PhD at Carnegie Mellon University. But you continue to retain close ties with India, and you continue to have a very important role that the Prime Minister has bestowed upon you in terms of leading and participating in the quantum as well as semiconductor missions. As one of the very few private sector people involved in this, thank you for your leadership there. Professor Khosla, you're also a distinguished expert on digital technologies, and you track how AI in particular is impacting business and leadership. And you've started an AI training program for your own faculty at UC San Diego, and that is fast developing ChatGPT and other LLMs in terms of incorporating them into your daily work life and processes. In the recent couple of years, we've seen a true transformation in the public's understanding of AI and ChatGPT. Before I go into what may be your views on the outcomes of this AI revolution, could I first ask you about your own experience as UC San Diego? I saw a photograph of you up there without your mustache, and then you told me that was an AI-generated photograph. So it's very opportune that...
Not by me. Go ahead. Actually, since age 18, I've never had no mustache, never. So somebody from I don't know who made a photo without the mustache and then put it on my Wikipedia page, and everybody uses that, and I hate it. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I like my mustache.
So first, tell us about UC San Diego and its leadership role in artificial intelligence. You're a premier research organization,
right,
and you have one of the largest budgets in terms of grants that you give out annually for research and development. But more than that, you have an interdisciplinary ecosystem that works right now. Could you tell us a little bit about the ecosystem at UC San Diego, as well as how AI is now playing a role, both in terms of research in specific, but also in terms of how the capabilities are being used in a cross-disciplinary manner within the university?
So thank you, Nikhil, for that question, and thank you for this invitation. It's a great honor to be here. Let me put a context around this conversation by taking 30 seconds to describe UC San Diego. So UC San Diego, the top line is $8.5 billion. So if we were a Fortune S&P 500 company, we would be in the S&P 500 in terms of revenue. The research portfolio is $1.8 billion, top 5 in the US. And all of this at a university which is only 64 years old. We were created in 1960. So in 64 years, we've had more research than most universities in the country. Not only that, in the last 10 years, when I got there, we were 1 billion. We are 1.8 billion now. We have added more in research funding than 95% of all US universities have as a total research. So the point I'm trying to make is it's a research powerhouse with 43,000 students, 33,000 are undergraduates, and 10,000 are graduate students, masters and PhD. A great deal of integration, great deal of strength in biological sciences, life sciences, computing and engineering, and economics. And it's all very harmoniously integrated now. Most institutions in the US are very siloed. engineering does not talk to physics, does not talk to biology, does not talk to medicine. But at UC San Diego, it's all, I call it like one campus, campus with multiple pillars of excellence instead of multiple pillars of excellence sharing one name. Two different ways of thinking about the same institution, but most institutions are like multiple pillars of excellence sharing one name. I can name a few, but I won't.
No, thank you for that. It provides a great background in terms of when we discuss AI.
Right.
It's important to understand that Professor Khosla approaches this not only as an academic, but as a practitioner, as well as a computer scientist himself.
Right.
So on AI, what is this going to mean for us? What is the outcome? What is the end goal here?
So I think, so the way you should think about AI is like the whole evolution of humankind and society is all about understanding nature, capturing nature, and using nature to improve productivity. Because we as human beings are very limited people in terms of our physical capacity to do work. So if you look at steam power, electricity, mechanical amplification, everything we did was to create like amplification of our capacity to produce more effectively. Agricultural revolution was the same thing. So I think if you think about AI, it's about expanding our capacity, our mental capacity, expanding our ability to think in ways that we have not done before. Before we were the brawn part of it, now we are the brain part of it. So that's how I think about AI. Okay, go ahead.
No, but as a productivity tool, it's imperative in a world that is starved of growth, especially in certain areas of the developed world, for them to achieve future productivity gains is the only route for growth at this point in time. India is blessed with having a demography which allows us to move up the per capita income chain. But how are we going to actually achieve this AI revolution? How are we going to embed this as a productivity tool into various products and services that we both produce and consume?
Right. So I think I just want to make one distinction here. So if you look at all of these revolutions, biotech revolution, agricultural revolution, IT revolution, at some point, all countries are able to play because the cost of technology becomes so cheap that everybody's able to play. So if you think about cell phones, like India, like when I was growing up, I did not have a phone. And next thing I know, I don't need a phone. Everybody has a cell phone now, right? So nobody talks about landline phone. AI revolution is slightly different. The cost of getting into this business is so high that I'm concerned that right now, so take this LLM models on which everything is trained. Most countries cannot afford to train large-scale LLMs. I mean, that's how high the cost is. And one needs to be aware of that. So it's not a game that everybody would be allowed to walk in easily. So the government will have to really invest significant amounts of resources to position any country or any society to really play in this game.
No, that's a very important point you bring out, because as I was told, in terms of these large language models, they're essentially trying to build transformers which mimic neural networks at the current capacity of over 1 trillion parameters. And I think the brain has a total synapse connections of somewhere in the tune of maybe 10 trillion.
Right.
So we're not too far off from actually getting the functionality that would be required in the brain, and the capacity and infrastructure that may be required would be enormous to put this together. How does one actually go about collaborating then to ensure that the data that you do put into a large language model and that you can take out is not monopolized by the supplier?
So it's going to become very challenging, okay? So the reason it has worked in the US is because for a long time, until very recently, the data, suddenly we all gave our data to various places for free this and a free that, including the airlines, the Walmarts, the CVSs, everybody got our data. Now that people have realized that these large language models, like Google was collecting data for the last 20 years. Amazon's been collecting data for the last 20 years. Apple's been collecting data. So guess who's playing in this game? Apple, Google, Amazon, because they have the data and the compute power to create the large language models and train the large language models and train the AI on the large language models. Other companies, including many large companies who were big companies before, don't have that capacity right now. So the point is, that now when you start collecting data, we are all much wiser now. So when we have to give our data, we have privacy concerns. We would say, how do I monetize my own data? Like, why are you monetizing my data? Why am I not monetizing? So all of these issues are going to come up. It's not very prevalent right now, but you can see the conversations have started in India, in Europe, about the price of who's owning the data and how do you monetize your own data. So it's going to become very complicated very soon.
No, that brings up so many more questions in terms of when you talk about monetization of personal data, it leads into a regulatory environment, which I do want to come to, but a little bit later, in terms of how best we can govern this. But before we do that, with your vast experience of students and academic institution, what are some of the applications of where a lay person can understand the benefits of AI?
Right.
Could you give some examples, maybe in healthcare or
No, so let's
logistics?
start with education, right? So if you think about education, it's the only industry which has created the IT revolution, but the cost of delivering a unit of education has not gone down. I mean, every industry, the cost of unit of whatever you're selling has gone down, except in education. Our tuition goes up faster than inflation. So right now, the most recent article in New York Times was that 1 year at a private institution costs $100,000. The median income in the US is only about $70,000 for a family of 4. So it tells you most people in the US cannot afford to send their students to college, right? That's how expensive it is. But I think AI is going to change that. So let me give you one example. So if you think about our education model, we have instructors, we have teaching assistants, we have lab instructors, we have a whole lot of support staff that are helping the student achieve the goals that they need to achieve. At UC San Diego, we are building an AI tutor. So the idea here is that this tutor is trained on all the textbooks that your instructors use, knowledge of your instructor, and it's available 24/7. And we are running experiments right now with freshman courses in probability, in biology, in chemistry, where you have access to this instructor and you can ask any question you want, and this instructor now becomes your teaching assistant. So the professor is still there, but now the teaching assistant has a secondary role, and most of the time it is this AI tutor that is your instructor. So that's like one example of how it's going to change. I can imagine that the professor might go away too one day. And we've been predicting that for 20 years. It has not happened yet. And I'll talk about it later, why it has not happened. But at the end of the day, education is going to become more outcome-oriented. Students will be able to customize their education experience, and institutions like mine will have to deliver that ability to customize, not just a single fit everybody type of concept notion for education, but the ability to customize your experience for every student.
Well, in this case, the teaching assistant may have all the answers as well. So obviously, the form of evaluation has to change.
Right. So that's the irony of this, right? So when ChatGPT came about, all the faculty members, just about every institution, were really very nervous about. They were concerned about students not delivering original work. They were concerned about people going to the web and copying from the web and not delivering, or what they call plagiarism, original work. And I personally had a counterintuitive way of thinking about this. My view was it's the combination of the student and ChatGPT that I'm going to hire. I'm not going to hire just ChatGPT or the student. So if this person is capable of using this technology and coming up with the right answer, because ChatGPT is not perfect, right? Just like we are not perfect. So the combination is more perfect than either one of them. So to me, that was an answer. It did not sit well with many people, but now I think all institutions are like coming to this understanding that ChatGPT is a tool. We have to train our students how to use the tool very effectively and use it in ways to become a superior worker than they would be without ChatGPT.
So, Professor Khosla, you did talk about the fact that you still need professors.
Yes.
You still need a human engagement on this augmented basis of using a tool like artificial intelligence. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean is, so if you let's look at the evolution of the human being. our ability to think has not changed dramatically in the last, I don't know, 1,000 years. Our ability to grow has not become faster in the last 1,000 years. So we are a very slowly evolving organism. AI, on the other hand, is extremely fast evolving from knowing nothing to knowing everything in a matter of a few hours or a few days, right? So when human beings, when we go to college, it's not just about knowledge acquisition. That's how we position ourselves. But it is about emotional maturity. We are not going to mature faster just because we have AI. It's going to take the same amount of time. Our psychological maturity is not going to go faster. So there's all these maturities that are happening, physical maturity, that just take time between the age of 18 and 22 or 23. So college is a good way still, or will be, to position yourself there in a social situation where these technologies can help, but they don't, how should I say, make you smarter faster. They make you more efficient, but they don't make you smarter, because our evolution is a very slow evolution.
Oh, thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to throw the floor open for questions. If I could ask you to just gather your thoughts together. I'll ask one or two questions more, and then I'll have the mics passed around. Professor Khosla, you saw your own photograph without the mustache. So there is a dark underbelly to how AI can be used.
Yes.
While everyone here is very hopeful on the productivity nature
Right.
of this application, what is the need for regulation? How do we think it through in terms of involving the citizen,
Right.
government, educational institutions? Where does this lie exactly in your mind?
Right, so let's start with, first let's create a basic understanding of what to expect. To expect AI to be perfect is a mistake. Because if you are a system builder, you know that any system which is never going to fail is going to cost infinite amount of money. So it doesn't work that way. So we will not expect AI to be perfect, just like we don't expect humans to be perfect. So the AI driver will actually have accidents, just like you and I have accidents. So we'll have to think about how to buy insurance for that. So what I'm trying to say is that there's going to be a parallel universe that's going to be created with these AI agents, which are going to be in support of human beings, but nonetheless, we will have to create different laws and insurance regimes to think about how to ensure that combination and not just the AI agent or the human being. Right? So this is actually very important to understand, because we give AI this power of God, present everywhere, completely knowledgeable, make no mistakes. That is not going to happen. I can pretty much tell you that. Right? There's very few pieces of technology that have a very, even like airplanes, which have got an amazing safety record, don't have 100% safety record. Every so often, once every 5,000 or 10,000 flights, something bad does happen, right? So that's an important notion, to remember that AI is going to be as good as a training model, data is trained on. It will never be perfect. The human being is not perfect, but the combination of the two will be more perfect than either one is.
Oh, thank you. That, I think, gives us lots of hope that that it's going to be better.
Combination is going to be better, but I think this notion that AI will wake up one day and take over the world, I'm not saying it won't happen, but it is not happening anytime in the near future. And if it happens, it's going to be through some integration of biology and biotech revolution and AI, and we are not there yet. So take, for example, healthcare. Let me just add, you asked about healthcare, right? So right now, what is the healthcare model? We're all sitting here, we don't know what ailments we have. We might have a irregular heartbeat. We might about to have a heart attack. We might have cancer. We don't know that. So if you think about personal devices and continuously monitoring sensors, so that's where a whole lot of technology is going. Sensors that are continuously monitoring your vital parameters. Now you keep that continuous monitoring, keep on capturing that, build algorithms on top of that to understand what it means, how would you detect arrhythmia, and you can actually see that Apple phone, Google phones, they actually have some of these capabilities. So healthcare right now is you fall sick, you go to the hospital. Healthcare in the future is going to be continuous monitoring, where the system will know that you're not doing well or you're on your way to being sick. And the system will call you and say, hey, you know what, Mr. Sharma, this is the time to go to the doctor now. Why don't you go there and talk to the doctor? So it's going to fundamentally change from bad stuff happening, what we call episodic monitoring or episodic doctor visits, to like continuous monitoring, continuous health monitoring. And by the way, we do that. If you are a jet engine, no, I'm not saying you are, but if you look at a jet engine, it's being monitored continuously. The health of the jet engine, while it is rotating in the air, is being monitored all the time so that we can predict when it's going to fail. So the same thing is going to happen with human beings. So you can see a whole revolution. So if you are an investor, a revolution in medical devices, medical sensors, AI-based treatments, especially in hospitals, where if you go to a hospital and you're there for like 1 month or 2 months or 2 or 3 weeks, you can get sepsis, and sepsis will kill you basically. So we have built algorithms at UC San Diego, just recently released, where we can detect sepsis before it happens. So we have reduced our mortality rate by like 30% just by this AI method and monitoring the patients in the ICU where you cannot move. So.
No, that's very encouraging. When are you commercializing these algorithms so that all of us can have a better quality of life?
Yeah, so they are actually being used in the hospital right now, but they're used as a test case because they're not ready for commercialization. But they are, I think, actually, I'm excited about what I'm seeing. I think there's a whole lot of positive things that are going to come out of data sciences, AI, computer science, IT revolution, the integration of all of that is going to lead to a more productive society, a more comfortable life for everybody, but also more inequity. So I think that's where the policy is going to be.
Well, actually, while I did ask the audience for questions, I've been given a bunch of maybe 6 or 7 questions already from the audience.
If you had AI, they'd be reading it for you.
Actually, I did ask ChatGPT. I did ask ChatGPT what I could ask Professor Khosla as a question. And should I?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Let me ask you the question that it came up with.
So you know how we all take pride in our kids, how our kids are smart and smarter than we are, and neighbors and smarter than the neighbor's kid. We might have AI that is customized to us, and then we'll compare our AI kids and how.
Well, my search has disappeared.
Okay.
But having said that, the 2 broad sets of themes that the questions that came in, the 7 or 8 questions that came, was around ethics and the second was around the cost of implementing AI. So, first one, if we could deal with ethics in terms of implementation, as well as someone put it very eloquently here, is unsupervised AI learning, the hygiene of the data. How confident are we in the outcomes of what we're going to be putting an increasing amount of reliance on? And what gives you comfort that there is an environment that would allow this to be more beneficial than harmful?
Right. So, so before I answer that, I want you to conceptualize the following. Yeah, as a human being, you can see the human being, the person is truthful, the person may be a liar, maybe a crook, maybe a criminal, but these properties. You can imagine an AI also having similar properties. So to assume that AI is always good would be a mistake. So you could have a criminal AI, you could have a crook, you can have a liar. So the difference between the two is that human beings, our evolution of communication is a very slow time constant. Whereas in AI, it's happening at the speed of light. And I think that is fundamentally the difference. That's why we don't like the hallucination. That's why we don't like AI that is not trained on the right type of data, because it's happening so fast that we, as human beings, we cannot monitor it. So we'll have to need AI to monitor the AI, right? And this is now becoming very significant because as human beings, we have laws, we have courts, we understand what the laws are. We don't have any laws for AI, for software. So I think we need to create that whole regime. So the best way to think about a good AI is just like upbringing your kids. We talk about she's got a good upbringing, or he's got a good upbringing. The AI who has a good upbringing is one that is trained on good data, is trained on unbiased data, is not trained on racist data. Or you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to create very simplistic comparisons between the two. I'm not saying this is exactly the way, but in terms of thinking, it's important to think about the way I'm describing you, because that will help you humanize what you're seeing, except operating at the speed of light.
I believe that the Chinese LLMs have been given permission to break down the firewall and access global data. And data is agnostic to language, in a sense, when it's computed back into that form. So when you have different regulatory regimes currently operating, the biggest being the Chinese regulatory regime and the US regulatory regime, Europe has a very strong data privacy law. How do we collaborate together? What is your view on ensuring that we're able to actually see the future that you're describing?
So initially, we'll be like blind people, kind of feeling our way through. At some point, we'll be more knowledgeable and we'll be more enlightened and we'll understand how to do it right. But let me remind you, this is not the first time we are seeing this dilemma. So I don't know how many of you remember when there was a goat that was cloned. And we had talked about no cloning, and the US was stopping it, and the Chinese were the first people to create, you remember that, or a baby calf, I can't remember. It was either a goat
Dolly.
or... Dolly, right? So that is actually more scary than AI, by the way, because you can imagine that a whole human race that looks like us is basically genetically built, and it's operating within us. AI, at least we can recognize. Right? So what I'm saying is, this is not the first time. So trying to become nervous and create a situation where we're all running around scared would be a mistake. So we have seen this before. This is not the first time. So we will take some time to understand the implications and how to create laws and regulations. But I think we will get there, because at the end of the day, as of today, we are still the more dominant form of intelligence than AI. The AI may be faster, but there's something about human intelligence that I cannot put my finger on, but I believe we are the more dominant form right now.
And hopefully for a very long period of time.
But remember, the AI evolves at the speed of light. We don't. We evolve at a very small time constant, thousands of years.
Now, coming to the second question on the economic cost, it's widely perceived that the productivity gains that we will gain from implementing AI systems and processes, or AI-enabled systems and processes through robotics and other innovations, will lead to unemployment, will lead to a degree of where you have people who have and have-nots. So, that disparity will grow. But at the same time, AI is available to all, and it empowers entrepreneurs at every level. It's accessible to entrepreneurs far easier than other innovations, which may have been more capital intensive in the past. How do you view this?
So AI, by the way, is extremely capital intensive. So, but even though we think AI is available to all, I am concerned that AI is not available to all. ChatGPT might be available to all, but the version that is being used, let's say in the US, may be 10x smarter than the version, or better trained than the version that is available to people in India or people in Indonesia or people in the Philippines. So don't quite think that this is going to be like networking technology where the state of the art is being, because this is going to be a competitive technology for countries and for societies. And this is going to be no different than many years ago, semiconductor manufacturing. The US used to lead in terms of equipment, semiconductor equipment, but then the Japanese were leading. And the US had a complete program of technology and social and policy to really bring back the lead, because that is the enabler that allows you to build the most sophisticated chips. It's not the chip itself, it's the semiconductor manufacturing equipment. So AI is going to be like the manufacturing equipment. It's going to enable us all, but we cannot assume that what you see, what you have, is the best possible available. Does that kind of make sense? So it's like being in an economic battlefield where you don't have the best tools, somebody else does. And so that's why it's important, back again to what I was saying, for every country to think about AI, think about an AI strategy, whether it is robotics or Gen AI, to really think about this and invest in infrastructure, because the infrastructure is very expensive right now.
So there's a need for us to as a country as well as corporations, to build collaboration so that we can mitigate some of the costs and build it collaboratively?
That's exactly right. Just like the defense infrastructure, not every country had the state-of-the-art airplanes and the missiles and the nuclear systems, and collaboration and the ability to protect each other led to these alliances and where we are today. And I think you will see the same thing happening with AI becoming one of those tools in the arsenal of economics, or even warfare. Right? So, okay, just look at the 300 drones that were released last week in the attack. You could not imagine drones attacking a country, but here we are, AI.
Yeah, well, they say the day of aircraft carriers is over, and it's
Yep.
more hubris to build it in terms of projection of power than reality of how wars will be fought. There's some questions here, again, back on the issue of unemployment or linked to it, is that will AI dumb us down? You already said that there exists a role of having professors in universities. But for the average person, will people lose the ability to envision, or will this? You've described AI as a tool.
We might, but I don't know if that means dumb us down. And I hate to do this because I see these audiences much younger than I am. When I was in college, the calculator had just come out. So I was first year in IIT Kharagpur. So we were not allowed to use a calculator because it was going to dumb us down, because we had to remember how to multiply and how to use a slide rule. Looking back, it was a dumb way to think about this, because maybe I don't remember my tables anymore, but I don't need to, because I have access to the technology. It's ubiquitous right now. So it's not like somebody does and I don't, but we all have access. So I think we need to be careful about how we create this equivalence of a technology is going to dumb us down. Quite the opposite. A technology is going to empower us more. So we should think about how to use that to become more powerful, more efficient, more impactful, more goal-oriented, rather than say, oh, it's going to dumb me down, so I'm not going to use it. I mean, that would be what is called a Luddite. I mean, English word.
When you, as a corollary to that, when you in your university and the students and professors help build algorithms for a variety of different applications, do you benchmark the impact of one versus the other? How do you determine funding for some projects versus?
So I don't know about funding. So funding to me is based on what I think is interesting to explore. But using technology, we have to benchmark, right? So this TA, for example, this tutor we are building, so we have benchmarked it, and it is like 99% more efficient than any human being in terms of cost per unit of education delivered, or how long it works and how much it costs, right? So we do benchmark it in multiple different ways. And we have to benchmark before we deploy it. We cannot just put stuff with human beings to use and not have benchmark to understand the impact of this.
Professor, there's a question here from an associate professor in the crowd. And he asks, can AI be considered a co-author or contributor in research publications? If yes, how can USC norms ensure that AI is used responsibly and ethically in research? And there's another question that goes along that, but maybe more in yours.
Okay, so right now, I don't think the answer is yes, but it is reasonable to cite the source as you use like this tool to generate that data. But there's no reason to make that tool a co-author, because if that was the case, the scanning electron microscope would be a co-author. I can see a whole bunch of pieces of very sophisticated equipment would be co-authors. Now, having said that, there will come a point, and I don't know when, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, when this AI is capable of evolving and giving you insights. And if you use the insight without a reality check, there might come a point where the AI itself might have value. So it might be, so now we are going into science fiction here, right? Where this tool that you train yourself, you would have created value in the tool, and then you would have to use that. Then it could be a co-author, I can imagine, but I don't see it right now. So right now, but you should be citing your sources, because remember, the output you're getting is most likely 10,000 people's thinking in 3 million pages of text that have been, the training has happened on. So there are other people's ideas embedded there. So I think it's just fair and honest to cite the source of where you might have gotten some information or idea.
And then on the dark side of AI, there's a question as to what is a control mechanism We've talked a little bit about governance structures and collaboration at a global level. But is there a plug that you can pull? And that case that you said, which is so far away on AGI taking over the world, which I don't think is exactly what you said,
Yeah,
though.
but control is pretty clear, right? Everybody, they all need power. So the difference is our power comes from the food, and the food that we eat and the conversion system in our body, in our cells, in the body, create the energy. That's how we power ourselves. I don't know of any computer that can live based on the food it eats. So they need electricity from the wall somewhere, right? So I think, yeah, you can still pull the plug right now.
I think the question was leading more towards values. How do we incorporate values into training models? How do we actually look at a human centricity towards AI recommendations?
So it would be no different than, I hate to make this comparison so clearly that it becomes, I know so it's like developing values in the human system. I mean, you have a child, the child is growing, the child watches you do things every day, the child talks to you, you talk to the child, they go to school. So there's a whole system society has developed to inculcate values in our youth. And the AI, what I'm telling you, is no different, except it's not a human, and that value system is through the training data we're going to give it. So we still have to understand, with all the data we are giving, how do we focus training on, let's say, more religious values than, some other non-religious values. So we still are, this is only year one, right, or year two of Gen AI. Just give it 3, 4, 5 more years. It'll be much better than it is right now, and we'll understand a lot more about how to really train systems that are. So imagine in the end, an AI should be trained to every individual's capacity. It should complement every individual. So it becomes a complementary source of amplification. So not everybody will have the same AI, because then there's no differentiation. So I can see a point where if you are an athlete and you are not that good at, let's say, logical thinking, the AI you would use would be better at logical thinking, and some AI might be better at scientific thinking. I'm just making this up right now, but I can see these modules being trained to really suit our individual shortcomings, and as a combination make us more effective and more useful. Well, no, we are useful anyway. So.
No, it gives immense hope that you as a chancellor of a university see AI as complementary to your students' educational aspirations and their educational work. There's a lot of fear that mothers and parents have about their children using things like ChatGPT in their homework. And it's very encouraging that you think that maybe we should encourage them.
But we are not where we can customize. So look, as individuals, like when you have a child, you decide, do they go to an English medium school or a Hindi medium school? Do they homeschooling, or do they go to a large school, private school, small school, public school? So all of these are ways that we are inputting into the young human being, and we don't see it that way, but they are being trained, quote unquote, as they grow. So that's why we end up growing into different human beings, even though biologically we are all the same. So think about AI as the same thing, and we are not there yet. We have one LLM, or we have 5 LLMs, and we have customizations, but we don't have the ability to create an AI for every individual to match to complement our capacity.
Okay. The 2 questions which have come here, which I think are quite wide apart, but I'll ask the first one first. What pedagogical tactics can be? What pedagogical changes and tactics can be used to make effective use of AI?
I honestly don't know the answer. Not many years ago, when right before COVID, when we were talking more about online education, we came up with this notion of the inverted classroom, where the idea was that you would come to class in small sessions where the instructor will talk to you, and the large sessions will happen online. Now, amazingly, when I was a young student at IIT, it was called tutorial. the class was only 30 students, but then we had tutorials of 5 students. So it was more customized. That's what Oxford does. That's what Cambridge does. So here we are using technology now to recreate that same situation. So I don't know what pedagogical changes will happen, but I can tell you students will be empowered to interrogate the AI without fear. So right now, when you have to ask a question of your teacher or TA, you might think it's a stupid question, and if it's not smart, the teacher might think you're a stupid person, so you don't want to do that. But in your privacy of your home, you have this AI tutor, and you can ask whatever questions you want. And I can see you build a learning strategy by asking multiple questions, you learn what you need to learn in different ways compared to as if you were interrogating a human being, right? So I can see changes happening, but I don't know top down what they are. I think we'll all customize this to our own capabilities.
Thank you very much, Professor Khosla. I've been told that we've exceeded our time.
Okay, sorry about that.
No. It's been a very engaging discussion. I think we've all benefited from your insights and views on the topic of AI and how we could enable it and be more effective leaders by utilizing this tool. I want to, ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in...
Before they do that, I just want to say thank you for this honor, and I want to leave you with a sense of optimism, but also a sense of caution, not fear. Not euphoria, but optimism, and not fear, but caution. So just with me, guys, stay with me on that, and I think we'll all work through this over the next decade or so. It's going to be great. Thank you.
You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you very much, Professor Khosla.